Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Tuesday, February 19th, 2019. I'm eventually going to get to college basketball and the NHL from last night, look ahead to today's games, and do my center field rankings, discuss a big rumor going around the NBA and some women's college basketball as well. But I have to start with Manny Machado agreeing to a 10-year, $300 million deal with the San Diego Padres. Wow. I mean, there were rumblings that they met with him a couple times, and their offer was like in the 8-year, $240 million range, but they upped it to $300, and that was able to get Machado to agree. It's not done yet because Manny still has to take his physical, and there has to be some no trade clauses in there, and there's supposedly an opt-out after 5 years. So this is huge news. We are waiting for Manny Machado to sign. We've been waiting for Bryce Harper to sign. There were rumors over the weekend that Bryce was going to sign a 10-year, $310 million deal with the Phillies, but nobody big time has reported it. It was just like either fake people or fake in terms of people that think they know but they really don't, or people that aren't as big in the industry as the likes of Jeff Passan, who reported the Machado signing, or Ken Rosenthal, or John Heyman, or Joel Sherman, or Mark Feinsand, who reported the term numbers. But that is big for the Padres. This obviously makes them an improved team. I was thinking before the season that I was going to put them around like 75, 76 wins, but now, barring some injuries, I'm going to obviously put them higher. To me, this is probably the third best team in the division, behind the Dodgers and Colorado, obviously. Dodgers being the favorite, Colorado being the number 2 team in that division. The Giants are rebuilding. The Diamondbacks are headed for a major blow-up with the trading of Paul Goldschmidt and the losing of Patrick Corbin in the offseason. They're probably going to trade Zach Greinke. Jake Lamb will be out there. Steven Souza Jr. and David Peralta will be out there. That team's headed for like a big rebuild, a la Orioles, Royals, Tigers-esque. And so are the Giants, with Madison Bumgarner probably being the best pitcher available at the deadline. And, well, assuming that Cleveland doesn't trade Corey Kluber or Troy Bauer, which I don't think they will, because they are going to be in it in the AL Central, obviously, and they're contenders, so I wouldn't think that they trade him at the trade deadline. If they had to trade one of them, they would have done it in the offseason, but good for the Indians by not doing it. But this is a huge signing. I think they're going to play Machado at third base, and they'll have Tatis at shortstop, and then at second base they'll have Urias, and then at first base they'll have Hosmer. But before Tatis gets called up, Machado will play shortstop probably, and then they'll have Urias at second, and then they'll have Ian Kinsler at third base. Or they can keep Machado at third base all year and then have Kinsler at second, and then Urias at shortstop, and then once Tatis gets called up, they'll make Kinsler either trade bait or a utility player, and then move Urias to second and put Tatis at shortstop. So the Padres have some interesting options regarding Machado in their middle infield before the call-up of Tatis Jr., and I would assume Machado will be playing third base for most of the year because Tatis is going to be a shortstop, and he's going to potentially be a great shortstop. A lot of folks are high on him. Obviously, they fleeced the White Sox when the White Sox foolishly traded him for James Shields, and then Tatis had his big breakthrough. I don't know if the White Sox thought that Tatis was going to be this good. And the other thing with the White Sox is that they were the front runners for Manny Machado for about a month, and then the Padres swooped right in and took him. And that's why, to me, this is a little bit of a surprise. And obviously, the Padres swoop in and sign him or agree to a deal with him. It's not official signing yet. And then the White Sox obviously made their moves to try to recruit Machado, like acquiring Yonder Alonso from Cleveland and signing John Jay, who both Machado are close with. And then Machado went with the White Sox a couple times. And then I think it's a big disappointment that the White Sox didn't get him, honestly. A big disappointment. And I think they're the big losers in the Machado sweepstakes. Obviously Philadelphia, but they'll make up for it if they sign Bryce Harper. And plus, they already acquired Gene Segura, so it's not like it's a failure that the Machado thing with the Phillies didn't work out, because at least they have Segura. There's going to be arguments that it's a failure that the Yankees didn't get him, because that was their perceived goal this offseason. And instead, they talked themselves into Andahar improving his defense, although he has a great bat already. They already have Gleyber Torres, who came up in the system as a shortstop, and then they put him at second base because of Didi Gregorius. And now Didi is in a contract year this year, coming off the Tommy John surgery. So maybe they'll lock up Didi long term once he's right from the Tommy John. So I can't really say it's a failure for the Yankees either, because of Didi Gregorius' growth as a player. If Miguel Andujar improves his defense, and obviously if Gleyber Torres lives up to the hype, if those three things happen, then the Yankees, you can say that they don't regret bringing in Machado. And another loser in this case, to me, they're kind of a loser because they traded for him last summer. The Dodgers, they gave up a hefty price to get him. That outfield prospect headlined the trade. Diaz, I believe his name was. And the Orioles got a good package for him. But the Dodgers, now you can say they traded all those assets for 3 months of Manny Machado and his drama in the playoffs with the non-hustling and all that garbage that surrounded his October run with the Dodgers. So you could argue that that's a failure that they didn't re-sign him. But in fairness to them, they have Corey Seager coming back from Tommy John surgery. And obviously they have Justin Turner at third base, who is an offensive machine. So there's cases to be made for failure or not for the team not signing Manny Machado. But to me, the big failure that they didn't sign Manny Machado was the Chicago White Sox, because of the other acquisitions they made. And they seemed like they were all in at one point, and then the Padres swooped in at the end and got him. So the Padres pretty much robbed the White Sox twice in a 5-year span, but the first time being landing Tatis in the James Shields trade, and the other time, obviously, stealing Machado away from them, and as they were perceived to be the favorites. And now Bryce Harper, your move, seems like it's either going to be the Phillies or the Nationals for him, unless somebody else overpays that we don't see coming. And the funny thing, back to Machado for a minute, initially it was Yankees, Phillies, White Sox, and a mystery team. Turns out that mystery team was indeed the San Diego Padres, and mystery team always wins out, or sometimes wins out. I feel like the mystery team always usually does win out, and then Patrick Corbin, the Nationals really weren't a mystery team. There was a reported meeting, but then again, the Padres were the late entry that was the mystery team, so they were the mystery team from about a month and a half ago that nobody was talking about that ended up getting Machado. And I wonder if that'll be the case for Bryce Harper. Probably not, because the Phillies were rumored for him all this time. And then there's obviously the Giants, who met with Harper. The Padres met with him. There was some momentum that maybe Bryce would sign with the Padres, but I don't see that now after they overpaid Machado. And then there's always that speculation about the Yankees and how quiet Brian Cashman is, but I don't see that either. I think they're content with Aaron Hicks and Aaron Judge, and then maybe they do think Brett Gardner will rebound, or they'll put Giancarlo Stanton in left field sometimes if Gardner doesn't rebound. And then obviously they have Clint Frazier, highly touted prospect that they acquired in the Andrew Miller deal in 2016, who really hasn't panned out for them yet. They have high hopes for him, or had high hopes for him, but I don't know if they still do. So we'll see what ends up happening with Harper. But if you ask me, I think he goes to the Phillies for the 10 years, $310 million that people seem to have speculated from over the weekend. Now we'll go to college basketball, where there were some interesting results from yesterday. Not a big slate because it was a Monday. Monday's not usually a big day in that sport. Number 3, Virginia defeats number 20, Virginia Tech, 64-58. Virginia is now on the season 23-2. Virginia Tech drops to 20-6. Kyle Guy had 23 points, had a bunch of three-pointers in the game, and Kerry Blackshear Jr. had 23 for the Hokies. Eastern Washington defeats Idaho 82-57. Eastern Washington 10-15. Idaho 4-21. K. Macon Jr. had 17 for Eastern Washington, and Idaho's leading scorer was Cameron Tyson with 18. Arkansas Pine Bluff defeats Alcorn State 73-62. Pine Bluff 11-15. Alcorn 8-17. Sean Doss had 25 points for Pine Bluff, and Maurice Howard had 13 for Alcorn State. Boston University defeats Holy Cross 70-60. BU 12-16. Holy Cross 14-14. Jonas Harper had 22 for BU, and Javi Floyd had 18 for Holy Cross. Savannah State defeats Bethune-Cookman 79-70. Savannah State 10-16. Bethune-Cookman 12-15. Jaquan Dotson had 23 for Savannah State, and Clattrell Pope had 13 for Bethune-Cookman. South Carolina State defeats Florida A&M 57-54. FC State 7-21. Florida A&M 11-17. Janai Raynor Powell had 16 for South Carolina State, and Isaiah Martin had 14 for Florida A&M. NC Central defeats Howard 98-90. NC Central 13-14. Howard 12-15. Jabri Blount had 31 for NC Central, and RJ Cole had 26 for Howard. Number 22, Wisconsin defeats Illinois 64-58. Ian Happ did not have a good game for Wisconsin. Despite that, they're 18-8. Illinois drops to 10-16. Brad Davison led Wisconsin scoring instead with 18, and Ayo Dasmanu had 13 for the Fighting Illini. Norfolk State defeats NCAT 76-58. Norfolk State 16-11, NCAT 14-12. Alex Long had 17 for Norfolk, and Cameron Langley had 14 for NCAT. Texas Southern defeats Jackson State 77-65. Texas Southern 14-11. Jackson State 9-17. Jeremy Cobbs had 33 for Southern, and Jackson State's leading scorer was Chris Howell with 16. Mississippi Valley State defeats Southern 70-59. Mississippi Valley State 5-22. Southern 4-22. Dante Scott had 27 for Valley State, and Alex Ennis was the leading scorer for Southern, had 16. Prairie View defeats Grambling 92-87. Prairie View 13-12, Grambling 13-13. Dennis Jones had 23 for Prairie View, and Grambling's leading scorer was Prince Moss with 26. Number 23, Kansas State defeats West Virginia 65-51. Kansas State 20-6, West Virginia 10-16. Barry Brown Jr. had 21 points for Kansas State, and Lamont West had 16 for the Mountaineers. Oklahoma State upsets TCU 68-61. Big win for Oklahoma State just to get themselves right a little bit. They're 10-16. TCU, bad loss, drops to 17-9. Thomas Zawaga had 23 for Oklahoma State, and Desmond Bain had 19 for TCU. Tonight's slate is a little bit bigger. At 6 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network, you have Dayton at Davidson. Davidson's favored by 3.5. I think they'll win and cover. They are the better team. 7 o'clock on ESPN, you have Vanderbilt, number 5, Tennessee. Tennessee's favored by 18. They're going to win, and they're going to cover. I think they're going to bounce back in a big way from that debacle. Or, wasn't really a debacle, but it was a disappointing loss at Rupp Arena. That game was sort of close at halftime, and then Kentucky got hot and pulled away late. So I expect Tennessee to bounce back in a big way and win and cover. ESPN 2, Purdue, who's number 15 at Indiana. Purdue's a 6-point favorite. Tough call here. Purdue's been playing great basketball. I think they win, but Indiana keeps it close because it's an in-state rivalry. So Purdue wins, Indiana keeps it within 6. Ohio at number 25, Buffalo. Buffalo's favored by 18. They're going to win, and I'm not sure if they're going to cover. I'm going to say Ohio covers and keeps it close. I'm going to say it's a 12-point Buffalo win rather than an 18. Akron at Bowling Green. Nebraska at Penn State on Fox Sports 1. Penn State's a 3-point favorite. I think the better team is the underdog in Nebraska. But I actually think that Penn State's going to win the game because I just think that Nebraska really is a team heading in the wrong direction. Penn State's been a little better. They upset Northwestern. They upset Michigan. I think Penn State wins at home and covers the 3, but barely. If anything, gets a push. Wake Forest and Notre Dame on ESPNU. Notre Dame's an 11-point favorite. I think they're going to win and cover. They're just better than Wake Forest. And I think Notre Dame's due for a 15-point win. Ole Miss at South Carolina. Ole Miss is a 2.5-point favorite. It's on SEC Network. Guess what? Trap game. South Carolina wins at home as a 2.5-point underdog. Iona at Quinnipiac. St. Peter's at Siena. Ball State at Miami of Ohio. Toledo at Eastern Michigan. Toledo's a 3-point favorite. Toledo is a dark horse candidate to get an at-large from the MAC. I think they're going to win and cover here. Bucknell at Colgate. Kent State at Central Michigan's a huge game in the MAC too. These two teams are combined 36-14. Central's a 2.5-point favorite, and I think they'll win and cover, although the Golden Flashes are a very good team. 8 o'clock on the Big Ten Network, number 24 Maryland and number 21 Iowa. Iowa's a 2-point favorite. I think they're going to win and cover. They're just a better team than Maryland, but I think that the line should be bigger than 2. I think Iowa should be -3. So I think giving 2 points for Iowa is a steal. Bradley at Drake. Wayland Baptist at Texas Rio Grande. CBS Sports Network, Rhode Island at VCU. VCU's an 8-point favorite. They're going to win and they're going to cover. This Rhode Island team is very Jekyll and Hyde. They lose at home to Fordham and then they can pull off an upset at home over Davidson. But I like VCU to win and cover. VCU needs these games down the stretch to be an at-large team. So give me VCU. 9 o'clock on ESPN, number 4 Kentucky at Missouri. Kentucky's an 11.5-point favorite. Kentucky is peaking at such a good time and making themselves a very strong case to be a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. They need a couple things to break. Tennessee needs to lose some games. Maybe Duke loses to North Carolina twice, and that can open the door for them. Gonzaga, I don't see Gonzaga blowing a 1 seed, but in theory, let's say Gonzaga loses unexpectedly. They need some of those teams ahead of them to lose unexpectedly. The big win over Tennessee is huge, but if Kentucky wins at Tennessee, then I think Kentucky has a realistic chance at a 1 seed. Oh, and the other one's Virginia. If Virginia loses some unexpected games down the stretch, then that can open the door for Kentucky too. Keep an eye on those 4 teams, and if those 4 teams lose games, then Kentucky can make itself an argument for a 1 seed. You need Carolina to beat Duke twice. And then Kentucky has a win over Carolina on their own, so they'll be ahead of Carolina, whatever bracket that comes out, unless Kentucky falters and Carolina wins twice over Duke and whatnot. At the highest, I think Carolina will be a 2 seed. It's funny because last week I thought they were a dark horse to get a 1 seed, but they would have had to upset Virginia for that to happen. But I really like this Kentucky team. I think they're going to win. They're going to cover. I think this is almost a 20-point game. You have number 16 Florida State at Clemson on ESPNU. Clemson's a 1-point favorite. Clemson's a team that's teetering around an at-large spot. That was a bad loss they had recently against Miami. I think they're going to rebound here at home against a good Florida State team. Florida State's the better team, but I just like Clemson in this spot, and they need this game. And I think they're going to come out with some desperate, and I think they're going to win like a 7-point game at home tonight to keep their at-large hopes alive. On ESPN2, you have Baylor at number 19, Iowa State. Iowa State is a whopping 10-point favorite. That's too big. Baylor's been faltering a little bit after a nice little run. I do think Baylor does get in at-large because of that good run they had. Iowa State had that great win over Kansas State. So I think Baylor has some value here as a 10-point underdog, just to cover but not to win. I think Iowa State wins by 7 rather than more than 10. So give me Iowa State to win but Baylor to cover. You have Alabama at Texas A&M. Alabama's a 1.5-point favorite. Bama needs some games down the stretch to make a run and an at-large. I did not have Alabama, I don't think, in my latest bracket thing, but I don't remember. But they need this game or else they're in trouble. Avery Johnson knows it, and I think they're going to win and cover against an overrated Aggies team. Texas A&M International at New Mexico State, and then at 10 o'clock on CBS Sports Network, UNLV at Wyoming. UNLV is a 5.5-point favorite. They're going to win and cover. I do not think Wyoming's good at all. I think that's the second worst team in the Mountain Valley Conference, the Mountain West Conference this year. So give me UNLV to win and cover. NHL, there was a 6-game slate last night, and yesterday in the afternoon was actually the first game. The Flames defeat the Coyotes 5-2. Good win for Calgary. They're 13-16-7. Arizona's 26-28-5. Much needed win for Calgary, too. Number 1 star of the game with a goal and assist, Mark Giordano. Number 2 star of the game with 27 saves on 29 shots, Mike Smith. Number 3 star of the game with 2 assists, Rasmus Andersson. The Lightning defeat the Blue Jackets 5-1 on national TV. That was a great win for Tampa Bay. Now there's speculation, obviously, Columbus and the futures of Sergei Bobrovsky and Artemi Panarin. Meanwhile, they're sitting right on the playoff bubble right now, as Tampa goes to 45-11-4, Columbus 33-22-3. Number 1 star of the game with 2 goals and 3 assists, Nikita Kucherov, has 99 points on the season, which is incredible. Number 2 star of the game with 39 saves on 40 shots, Andrei Vasilevsky. Number 3 star of the game with 2 goals and an assist, Braden Point. The Blackhawks defeat the Senators 8-7. Yes, 8-7. Chicago 25-26-9. Ottawa 22-32-5. Number 1 star of the game with a hat trick and 2 assists, Alex DeBrincat. Number 2 star of the game with a goal and 2 assists, Patrick Kane. Number 3 star of the game with 2 goals and an assist, Colin White. The Avalanche defeat the Golden Knights 3-0. A huge win for Colorado. 24-24-11 on the year. Vegas is 32-25-4. Number 1 star of the game with 40 saves on 40 shots, Semilai Varlamov. Number 2 star of the game with a goal and an assist, Andrew Agozzino. And the number 3 star of the game with a goal, Tyson Yost. The Bruins defeat the Sharks 6-5 in overtime. The Bruins had no business winning this game. They were literally handed this game courtesy of the officials. We'll get to that in a second, as they take advantage of a no call and improve the 35-17-8. San Jose drops the 35-17-8. Number 1 star of the game with the hat trick, Joe Thornton. Number 2 star of the game with the goal and 2 assists, Joe Pavelski. Number 3 star of the game with the goal, Charlie McAvoy, who ended up scoring the overtime winner. We had the game-tying goal that tied it at 5 apiece was by Chris Wagner with a little over 2 minutes to go. Or, I'm sorry, it was less than 2 minutes to go. And I don't think they pulled the goalie yet, Tuukka Rask. And he high-sticked the puck in the net. It was clearly a high stick and it shouldn't have counted. And then they counted it, and it cost San Jose a point. And if San Jose loses the division by a point to Calgary, they were going to point to this game and say, seriously? And meanwhile, Boston, on the flip side, if they come in second or third in the division by 1 point over Toronto, or they finish in third, 1 point above, let's say, Montreal, if Montreal bounces back a little bit and gets back in the top 3 in that division. By the way, 6 straight wins for Boston. That can't be discounted. But say Boston comes in second by 1 point or finishes in third by 1 point, they'd say, oh, they shouldn't be there because they were rewarded that point because Chris Wagner's high stick goal shouldn't have counted. But yeah, that was such a bad finish, and I don't blame Peter DeBoer whining to the refs at all. That was probably the worst no call I've seen all season. The Capitals defeat the Kings 3-2. Capitals are 33-20-7. Kings 23-30-6. Number 1 star of the game with 2 goals, Alex Ovechkin. Number 2 star of the game with 2 assists, John Carlson. Number 3 star of the game with an assist, Dustin Brown. Tonight's slate is pretty big. At 7 o'clock, you have the Rangers at the Hurricanes, the Sabres at the Panthers, the Penguins at the Devils, the Lightning at the Flyers. 7:30, the Blue Jackets at the Canadiens. 8 o'clock, NBCSN, Maple Leafs Blues. On the call of this game will be Chris Cuthbert and Pierre Maguire. Blues are winners of 10 straight. Will they make it 11? Guess what? Yes, they will. I'm not betting against the Blues until further notice. Maybe next time I'll bet against them, they'll probably be at the Lightning. So, or at maybe San Jose I'd pick against them, or at any, better than them Western Conference team, which, to me, you can only make a case for San Jose being better than them. I'd pick them at Calgary right now. The only way I'd pick against St. Louis right now is if they're playing at Tampa Bay or at San Jose. You can talk me into if the game was at the Air Canada Center. Oh, that's not the name of it anymore, isn't it? Or at the Maple Leafs, maybe I'd pick Toronto. If it was at Boston at TD Garden, maybe I would pick Boston. I picked them to win in any Metro Division team's arena right now, and I'd pick them to win at any team in their own division's arena because they won in Nashville. They won in Winnipeg. Both of those teams have been vulnerable at home this year. The only team who really hasn't been vulnerable at home this year has been Tampa Bay. And even the Sharks have been vulnerable in their home building, as we saw last night and as we saw against the Capitals last week. So the Blues are just tough to pick against right now, and I love them, and I think they win by multiple goals. So give me St. Louis on home ice to win their 11th in a row. You have the Ducks at the Wild, 8:30 the Predators at the Stars, and 9 o'clock you have the Coyotes at the Oilers. Let's talk about women's college basketball a little bit. A couple big games last night between ranked opponents. Number 5 Notre Dame defeats number 9 NC State 95-72. Notre Dame 25-3, NC State 22-3. Two good teams from the ACC. Notre Dame's really good. NC State has been much better than I anticipated. Enrique Angabale, best player in the country, 22 points to lead Notre Dame. And Elisa Cunane from NC State put up 28. She's been a pretty good player for them. Number 12, Oregon State defeats number 2, Oregon 67-62. These are just games between ranked opponents. Oregon State with the big win goes to 21-5. Oregon drops to 24-2. That was their second loss of the year. Oregon has been a pleasant surprise this year in women's college basketball. Aaliyah Goodman of Oregon State put up 22 for them in the win, and Sabrina Iunsu of Oregon put up 21 in defeat. Great win for the Lady Beavers. There's no games between ranked teams in women's college hoops. It's a lot of mediocre teams playing tonight and teams from lesser conferences. And then there's some big ones on Wednesday night in women's that I'll get to on tomorrow's podcast. Now I'm going to do my MLB center fielder rankings as we head closer to the start of the season. There are a grand total of 36 players on the list. Some teams have platoons. Some of these guys are free agents. Actually, I don't have a free agent on this list, believe it or not. Right field has a couple free agents, obviously. 36, Cedric Mullins of the Baltimore Orioles. He's slated to be their starting center fielder, probably their leadoff hitter. Number 35, Jacoby Jones of the Detroit Tigers. He's shown flashes, but I'm not convinced that he's going to be a good Major League Baseball player. I mean, good and consistent. 34, Adam Engel of the Chicago White Sox. He's shown flashes with the glove, but not really with the bat. 33 is Albert Almora Jr. of the Chicago Cubs. He's a good defensive center fielder, but he hasn't really shown any offensive capability. 32 is Juan Lagares of the New York Mets. He's an excellent center fielder defensively. He's shown some signs offensively, but he's somebody that usually gets hurt. 31, Bradley Zimmer of the Cleveland Indians, somebody that garnered a lot of hype when he was a prospect, but he just can't stay on the field. Number 30 is Frankie Cordero of the San Diego Padres. He showed some pop last year with his bat. 29 is Manuel Margot of the San Diego Padres. He's somebody that hasn't panned out quite yet. He was the key piece that came over from Boston in the trade that sent Craig Kimbrell from San Diego to Boston. 28 is Billy Hamilton of the Kansas City Royals. He was obviously a highly touted prospect from the Reds. Didn't really pan out. And then he was a free agent, and now he is a Royal. 27, Keon Broxton of the New York Mets. I'm really high on Broxton. He showed a lot of power and pop with the Brewers, but he just wasn't getting any playing time because they went out and signed Lorenzo Cain and Christian Yelich, so there wasn't really a spot for Broxton, and I think he'll see some more opportunities with the Mets. 26 is Steven Duggar of the San Francisco Giants. He's somebody that showed some flashes. He's slated to be their leadoff hitter. 25 is Delino DeShields of the Texas Rangers. He's a really good defensive player. Showed a little bit of flash offensively. 24 is Ramon Laureano of the Oakland Athletics. He came up for them and provided a spark defensively and offensively. 23, Michael A. Taylor of the Washington Nationals. He is an above-average fourth outfielder for them. And he's seen more regular playing time than past because there's always injuries on that Nationals team. So he was good enough to put on the list. 22 is Ketel Marte of the Diamondbacks. He's making a position change, obviously. He has a lot of speed, which helps him and his case to be a good center fielder. And he is a good bat, too. Number 21 is Ian Happ of the Chicago Cubs. He's always had hype with his bat. Obviously, we all remember on opening day last year on the first pitch on a nationally televised game in Miami against the Marlins. Hit a ball deep the right field in Marlins Park in Miami. But he really hasn't put it together a full season. His name's been in trade rumors pretty much his whole career as the Cubs were trying to improve their team. But I'm still high on this kid, and he was obviously a highly touted outfield prospect for them. 20, Lewis Brinson of the Miami Marlins. He's somebody that I think is entering a bit of a make-or-break year because he was a highly touted prospect originally from the Rangers, and the Rangers shipped him to Milwaukee in the Jeremy Jeffress trade, and I believe that was 2016, and then Brinson went from Milwaukee to Miami in the Christian Yelich deal 2 winters ago now. Or I'm sorry, it was winter of 17-18. So pretty much 2 winters ago. And he really hasn't lived up to the hype with the Marlins either. Number 19 is Kevin Pillar of the Toronto Blue Jays. He had a good little offensive spurt at the end of last year, but he's known for his great play defensively. 18, Malik Smith of the Seattle Mariners. He had a career year of the Rays last year, and then the Rays shipped him for Mike Zunino. And I think Smith's going to be trade bait again this year for the Mariners. 17, Jock Peterson of the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's somebody that could be trade bait right now that they signed A.J. Pollock. But I do think he'll see playing time on that Dodgers team with all the National League rules and whatnot. The Dodgers really are a team that likes to utilize its roster to its advantage. We'll see what happens with Peterson. He obviously has shown flashes of being potentially a great player, but he really hasn't been consistent. Number 16 is Leonis Martin of the Indians. He was their trade acquisition last year, and then he ended up getting hurt. And then the Indians really didn't have that great of an outfield. But he was in the midst of his career year when Cleveland acquired him. 15, Kevin Kiermaier of the Tampa Bay Rays. Like Pillar of the Blue Jays, a defensive wizard who robs opponents of home runs all the time. But he's shown a little more with the bat than Pillar has, even though Pillar had that big spurt at the end of last year. 14, Harrison Bader of the St. Louis Cardinals. Bader, somebody that came up and provided good for the Cardinals in the second half of last year. They're hoping it replicates to what he really is, which is a very good baseball player. That's what they're hoping. 13, Byron Buxton, Minnesota Twins, a highly touted prospect a long time ago. Hasn't really lived up to hype pretty much ever. I know he had a spurt at the end of 2017, leading the Twins to the wild card game in Yankee Stadium, and ultimately which they got blown out in that game. And then Buxton really hasn't done anything to prove that he's going to be an all-star caliber player like the Twins thought they were getting with Buxton. Make or break year for him, too. 12, Scott Schebler of the Cincinnati Reds. He had a career year last year, and he's looking to build on that. 11, Victor Robles, Washington Nationals. Yes, he's considered by most people still a prospect, but he's seen time in the big leagues, so he was eligible to make the list. To me, you're only eligible to make the list if you've seen time in the big leagues. So that's the case with Robles. Or the other case is that, or if you're projected to be your starting, whatever, in this case, starting center fielder on opening day. Like, Fernando Tatis obviously didn't make the shortstop list. Eloy Jimenez hasn't made my outfield list from the White Sox, and obviously Vlad Guerrero Jr. hasn't made my third base list. That's because those three players won't be starting for their respective teams on opening day because of that stupid rule. So, Robles is somebody that I think will be among the front runners for the National League Rookie of the Year. He would have been on the Nats last year if he wasn't hurt, and then which led to Juan Soto getting that opportunity, which is making they don't have to bring back Bryce Harper argument even more because of the emergence of Soto and then the projected rise of Robles as well. 10, Abdul Herrera, Philadelphia Phillies. He's somebody that has shown capability offensively and defensively, but I'm not sure if Philadelphia wants him long-term because I know they have their eyes on Mike Trout in 2020, but he certainly has shown to be a solid center fielder in the bigs. 9, Ender Inciarte, Atlanta Braves. He's been up and down, but I think this could be the year he puts it all together. 8, Starling Marte, Pittsburgh Pirates. He had a good year last year after coming back from that suspension. Number 7, Jackie Bradley Jr., Boston Red Sox. Maybe this is just an overreaction to his great playoffs, but that's remained to be seen. 6, A.J. Pollock, Los Angeles Dodgers. I think he was overpaid in the offseason, and I don't like that signing by the Dodgers, but he'll certainly help them, or at least in the beginning of the contract, assuming he stays healthy. Number 5, Lorenzo Cain, Milwaukee Brewers. Defensive wizard and an on-base machine, doesn't have a lot of power, but brought a lot of leadership and swagger to that Brewers team last year. Number 4, Aaron Hicks, New York Yankees, probably the biggest breakout center fielder in the majors last year. He is going to be the Yankees' leadoff hitter this year in all likelihood. I believe he can hit 30 home runs this year. He's certainly a candidate to make the All-Star team. And obviously he's in a contract year this year, so I expect him to have a big year. 3, Charlie Blackmon, Colorado Rockies. He had a down year last year, but this guy's a stud. And once he is normally healthy, he's a 30 home run hitter with an average over 300 capable type of player. Maybe even 40 home runs considering Coors Field. 2, George Springer, Houston Astros. The World Series MVP in 2017. He was hurt a lot last year, but this guy's still a stud, and obviously a 40 home run threat on that great Astros team. And number 1, Mike Trout, Los Angeles Angels. Did you have any doubt? Mike Trout's the best player in the game until further notice. And yes, his team is not very good, but Mike Trout is still the best player in the world, and I expect him to have another big year this year. Before I do my best bet, I have to talk about a rumor that surfaced over All-Star Weekend in the NBA. The Ringer's Bill Simmons said on his podcast with Ryan Russillo late Sunday night that Madison Square Garden chairman James Dolan was courting offers for the New York Knicks. And of course the Garden came out and said that's not true. And it's funny, this rumor has popped up numerous times over the past couple of years. So the more the rumor comes out, the more you start to believe it's true. I've learned that with a lot of different scenarios. We saw it last year with LeBron with the Lakers. And then obviously when LeBron went back to Cleveland in 2014. And then even now with Machado and the Padres, even though it was more likely that he was going to end up with the White Sox. And then you've seen it in football with a couple of these big-name coaches and players. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh in 2014, there was loud rumors that he was leaving, and then he eventually left. Tom Thibodeau, rumors that he was going out, and he eventually left. But I'm starting to believe that this could very well be true, and Knicks fans have every right to be happy because this team has had literally no success under Jim Dolan. The only kind of success they had was in the early 2010s, like 2010 till 2013. They made the playoffs a few years in a row, lost in the first round twice, and lost in the second round to the Pacers in a series in which they were favored to win. But ultimately, they did lose to a better Pacers team in 2013. That Pacers team ultimately did prove to be better because they took Miami to 7 when LeBron was in his peak on that Heat team, obviously. And so they did lose to a better team in 2013 in the Pacers, but they were obviously the 2 seed and the Pacers were the 3 seed. But I think Vegas just overrated the Knicks rather than look at the Pacers and realize that they were a good team that year. But ever since he hired Phil Jackson, the Knicks have been a laughingstock dumpster fire. 6 straight losing seasons for the Knicks. And yeah, he stayed out of the Knicks over the past 6 years, but it's been ugly. Phil Jackson was a disaster. He picked bust after bust after bust in the draft, with the exception of Kristaps Porzingis, who forced his way out of New York. He overpaid for Carmelo Anthony, in which they thought Carmelo was still in his prime. And I don't think he wanted Carmelo. I thought he was forced to re-sign Carmelo, so part of that is Dolan's fault. And obviously Dolan owns the New York Rangers as well, and I'm curious to see if they're quietly up for sale as well. But I doubt it because Dolan really likes hockey, and obviously he likes hockey more than basketball. He grew up liking the Rangers as a kid. He owns the whole building, but the rumor is that he's just courting offers for the Knicks, and he's going to keep, obviously, the building, and he's going to keep, obviously, the Rangers, unless he starts courting offers for them, too. That would be pretty interesting if he did that. But that's just a big rumor coming out of All-Star Weekend that Bill Simmons said on his podcast from people that he trusts, and that kind of got some chit-chatter going in the media yesterday, and not really today because of the Machado news, but yesterday, that was the big story, and that is very, very fascinating. We'll see where that ends up, even though the Garden keeps denying it repeatedly. Now, my best bet of the day, brought to you by FanDuel. Yesterday, I lost because of the Sharks and that blown no call, or else I would have won a whopping $27. Small wager today, only 6 teams, 5 college hoops teams, and one hockey. Notre Dame, VCU, Iowa State, Kentucky, UNLV, and the Pittsburgh Penguins, plus 326. Wagered $1, the payout of $4.26. That's it for the podcast today. I'll be back tomorrow recapping college basketball, NHL. I'll do my right fielder rankings. We'll talk a little bit more about the Machado Padres fallout. And obviously, I'll do my best bet for tomorrow, and maybe I'll throw in another activity as well. Hope you guys have a great day, everybody.